My name is Rabbi Shir Yaakov Feit, and I want to share with you what I've learned through trial and error. And there's been plenty of error over the past 10 months of doing Zoom services online. I'm going to touch on things that you've probably discovered, but I've also found that some of these best practices that other people have generated are just simple like ahas. I didn't even think about doing that. So I want to share some of mine, and hopefully you'll share some of yours with me as we go deeper into this. So what I've learned over the past 10 months of doing Zoom services. So I first want to say, be prepared. I can't underscore how much time is actually going into things like disorganizing my bookshelf by color, or fiddling with lights, or playing with software and playing with gear. So what happens beforehand is really key. And when it comes to doing services online, I find that what David Ingber coined as a pray list, not a playlist, but a pray list, of having the idea written down of what liturgical pieces you're going to use is really key. I'll show you some of my pray lists in a moment. Gather a team, just as Michelle reminded me to hit record, to try to do this together. As one person put it, I just hope I don't have to grow 6 more limbs in order to try to hold Shabbat as I do this. It's really helpful to not do this alone. Tech check to make sure the mic is working, the lights are on, the software is running, because time and again, Mensch tracht and Gott lacht, we plan and God laughs. So double, triple check, have backups. I'm recording this in 2 places at once. Experiment, feel like this is a playground, a digital playground. The technology and the time can make it really overwhelming. But, when you talk about instruments, it's called playing an instrument. This should be part of your tool chest, your sandbox to play in. And then really, really important, chazara, to review and iterate and see what worked and see what didn't. Try things again, try things differently. I feel like, we've done probably 40 or so, maybe 4 of these 10 months, 40 of these services, and I haven't done the same thing twice in many instances to see what works and works for me and works for my community or communities. Audio. I'm a musician, but I think this is one of the most important senses to make that connection for intimacy. If Zoom is this platform that most of us are using. It was not made for music. Its algorithm was made for speech. So if you don't know about the preserve original sound setting or background noise suppression, those are important things to take a note of or circle back and ask me about. There's a saying in high-end audio, garbage in, garbage out, or your system is only as strong as the weakest link. The built-in microphone of your computer is probably not made for music. Even those headsets that look fancy, but they're really for like tech support for people on the phone a lot, those aren't really good for music either. So we will talk about using a USB microphone or an audio interface. And then what you do to the signal going in. Like if I want to make my point very clear, I can turn this very up and I have a thick effect. But even for my speaking, I'm doing audio processing to my spoken voice. That's true for when I'm playing instruments. Different instruments require different microphone techniques. And then, of course, how the space you're in, the room treatment, affects sound dramatically. And sometimes subconsciously, but powerfully. Good video. Lighting is key. Really key. Planning your shot, thinking about what's behind you. That open door or that like askew curtain, it's subtle, but it adds to the overall offering that we're making. So thinking mindfully about where you'll be, how comfortable you will feel in relationship to the community you're leading, because this is really all about intimacy too. And so good eye contact, good we being comfortable, non-anxious presence of leadership. Like we get this all set up and then hopefully it disappears so we feel like we're in each other's space, physical space. We'll talk about camera options too. Usually I would say actually with the right lighting and with the right scene, what's built into your device is probably good enough, but we can talk more about streaming rates and fancier cameras and stuff like that later. So getting fancy, that's actually what we're here to do. I wanted to cover like the simple bases, but before we do, I think I want to say that Zoom can do a lot. We've learned that through screen sharing, through powerful utilization of the chat function, how to do now this new feature called multi-spotlighting, where you can bring people up on screen, sharing the spotlight, sharing the front of stage, and also the use of breakout rooms. Actually, Mark Novak, I just realized in his community, calls them breakthrough rooms, right? Even the way we use about this language. Someone referred to the chat who one person was complaining was distracting, and another, Amar Rav Lex, no, this is the Gemara. This is the commentary alongside the Mishnah of what's going on in Zoom. So there are different ways we can expand even the capacities of Zoom. But we're really going to dive in today more about what overlays and scenes are. And this is language that applies whether you're using OBS, Ecamm Live, Singular Live, other things like that. We'll talk about the software in particular. And then the peripherals, other things other than your computer and your microphone or special lighting that may help free you up to be a better presence on the lens on the screen. So we'll talk about some of those specific pieces. I have a background in web and graphic design, nearly 2 decades actually. And so a lot of what goes into, my previous career and my current one are pretty well matched for this digital moment, this cyber moment. So while I could speak for hours on graphic design, on presentation, there's really 3 things I just wanted to say that you think about what the function of the thing you're designing or offering is. How we show up to a Shiva Minyan at these times or a Shloshim is really different than a Kabbalat Shabbat or a text study or what are you designing? Think about the function. Envision what an elegant outcome to what you're trying to do might look like, might feel like, might sound like. Within a visual medium, consistency is really key. One of my kind of rules of thumb is not to mix too many colors or fonts or shapes. I guess that's more simplicity, but from scene to scene or frame to frame or week to week, the subconscious relaxation and rest that can come if the eye knows always where to find the transliteration or what color the translation is going to be. This is one place where I actually do not try to iterate. I actually try to refine and continually simplify so that the user, it's an awkward term, but from interface design, it's often thought about users, like the person receiving the gift of what we're offering, to allow them to do as little work to navigate the space, but to give them as much information as they need. So that also has to do with things like words per line or lines per screen or how often you're changing the thing you're sharing. So I want to now give you a kind of a quick tour of a few things. My setup, like what I'm looking at right now, my spreadsheets, actually how I plan and some of the background prep stuff, and then we're going to dive into Ecamm scenes. So how did I just do that, right? That fancy transition from an overlay with a presentation to this camera, that's all. I'm working in a software called Ecamm Live. I will provide all of the names of the software and the links to what I'm using afterwards. But I want to show you first. So this allows me to switch between different inputs. So right now, I'm using a camera to show you my desk, right? And what I'm using, I can't show you the camera itself, but this is a Logitech webcam. And I'm going to show you my desk, but I'm actually just showing you this to give you a different sense of the screen quality, right? So that is showing you a Logitech, I think this is the 922. It's a 1080p camera. But now I'm going to switch. It's going to be black for a second. I don't know if you notice immediately a difference in the camera quality, but I'm now actually using an iPhone as my web camera. Now, most people don't think, oh, I can do that. But if you may have an old iPhone lying around that's significantly better than the webcam built into your computer or whatever, or even something if you've bought a webcam, an iPhone is a fabulous option. So what we have here is a mixer, an audio mixer. I really, the function I like most here is to be able to see my audio levels, right? If I am clipping, if I'm going into the orange, I know it might be getting too loud, things like that. And when I'm collaborating with other musicians or using tracks, I can affect them differently. The requisite kiddush cup left over on the desk from Friday night. My monitor, I have a key light, and I have a teleprompter. The reason that looks like another screen is because it is. I'm actually using an iPad that gets reflected in a mirror, and the camera my primary camera is actually behind that mirror. And then I have something here also called a Stream Deck. This is probably much more than I need or anyone really needs, but you can program these buttons to do certain things. I could, for example, turn my light off, turn my light on, change the color of the lights, end scenes, do a lot of stuff there. Again, we could spend a whole hour on just the Stream Deck. And one thing I want to show you down here is a foot pedal. The lighting isn't great, but the ability to switch or send keyboard shortcuts to my computer without my hands becomes essential when I am trying to, strum a guitar or sing a song or drum a drum when I want to switch the words. Okay. Also, part of that, the experience of having a ton of background in web and graphic design, I'm not what they call a digital native, but I'm really technologically literate. So some of this stuff that I'm able to do, switching between applications, between documents, all of that, that's why I really strongly recommend you kind of prep a team, or not try to do what I'm doing all by myself. Okay, so I'm gonna go into to share, just sharing straight from Zoom, screen share this spreadsheet with you. And this is my Friday night tab of my Kol Chai playlist with Romamu Sidor transliterations and translations. So in the first column is the page number from the Romamu Sidor, which is what I reference, which is what we give at the very beginning of a service as a PDF to people. And these are all of the possible things we may do on a Friday night, right? So here on page 6 would be Shalom Aleichem, all of it. Within this cell is all of the transliteration for that, so that my Shomer can drop that into the chat. Hebrew, if we should need it, if there's a translation from Rabbi Jill Hammer there, if there's a singable English, etc. This spreadsheet, it's an incredibly valuable resource that we're constantly updating. Also, the Shomer has kind of prefab blurbs that they put in every service at a certain amount of times, like post this at 10 minutes in, 10 minutes after, post it if by request. What if someone says they have low audio? We've prepped all of those messages, and we're constantly iterating that. And then we have, on a given service, we're now planning who sings what and when and where the lyrics are. We try to simplify it. So those are my playlists. Again, that could be a whole other shiur just on that. But now I want to do something that I've actually never done myself, which is show you Ecamm Live while using Ecamm Live. So I think it is this keyboard shortcut. Here are scenes that I've set up in advance. And again, this goes into the preparation. Within Zoom, when you are using something called Ecamm Live, your camera, you then have a camera options, select a camera. And what we're watching is the Ecamm virtual camera, Ecamm Live virtual camera. So I'm not just sending a pure video signal to Zoom, I'm sending the output of the software. You could replace OBS, which is a free cross-platform software, meaning it can work for Linux and Windows and Mac. I like Ecamm Live, having played with that, and I've played with Singular Live. Ecamm has just enough and a limited functionality set that makes it work for me. So whatever I do in Ecamm here is going to be shown to you. These scenes are things I've set up in advance. So if I wanted to sing Hine Ma Tov U'Manayim with you, I would open this scene. You can see that there's a little keyboard shortcut. Like if I hit Command 6, I could jump there. If I hit Command 1, I go back to the main scene, Command 6, right? And adding one of these overlays within Ecamm Live is as simple as choosing the overlay menu and adding a new text overlay. So there are all sorts of overlays. You can add video, you can add images, you could add widgets. But I'm going to just double click into this one and just show you that it's as simple as putting text over your screen. What is not simple though is planning this design in advance, right? So here, if I'm singing this, Hine man tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad ze hayom. I'm going to the B part. I just triggered that with a keyboard shortcut. Just by holding Command right, I can go back Command left, right? So I can go back between my A and my B. I could be doing this with my foot pedal as well if I had my guitar in my hand. But for this to be an elegant experience for the end user, you have to plan the font size. You have to plan how many lines are going to go for your Hebrew and your transliteration. You have to decide, like I have in this case, am I going to include translation? And then once I've done that, to make sure that when they go back and forth, the Hebrew is in the right place versus for the eye. Like if someone's eye is just used to staying with the Hebrew, that when I go back and forth between these two, they're in the same visual plane. This font, also I've experimented with multiple fonts and what works best on screens, what I like aesthetically. This is a font called SBL, the Society for Bible Literature. It's a free font. Both the Hebrew and English are in this font. What I love about the Hebrew is it supports all the Ta'amei Mikra, and the vowels are in the right places, which are not totally true for some of the other free fonts that are out there. Google Fonts has a whole beautiful grouping of Hebrew fonts. But I've landed on this one because it's kind of classic, it's legible, I like the English that matches it. But also you'll note here, this is not actually just a simple use of English. I've chosen, my transliteration style is consistent. I use a middle dot instead of a dash. And each of these words in the transliteration has 2 spaces, not just one. So there are all of these things that I think about. You can also see here in the scenes on the left-hand side where I have Hine. I'm going to switch to Ze. And then when I'm done, I create this blank scene, right? This not symbol is my symbol to myself. Like if I'm going to a Yaidadai, if I know I'm going to speak for a while, to be able to switch back into something that has no text over it. I want to just show you a couple more things, then we can come back and I can slow down. I can go into any of these things when we get to questions. I want to try to get to the second half of our hour together, just exclusively opening to questions. So then there are times when I want to present more text, or I know I'm going to be allowing more, it'll be less chant or nigun, and it'll be more traditional matbea or something like that. And that's when I will embed a PDF along with, if I can, an image of myself. Because I feel like the way that screen sharing happens in Zoom, when you get one little person up in the corner, this feels more connected, more intimate to me, and I can still continue to model prayer while providing transliteration, translation, and Hebrew. Normally, when I'm sharing, people can't see this. Sorry, when I'm streaming, the end user doesn't see this, but this is what I see in the background. I can flip through pages in a PDF. Now, having designed the Romamu Sedor, I have both Friday night and Saturday night, I have all of these incredible digital resources already at my hand. So I recognize that's not something everyone has access to. In many cases, I'd recommend using the overlays. but I do want to show you how simple creating something like this is. So I'm going to I'm going to go back to this simple scene. I mean, I'm going to make it look easy. Maybe it's not so easy, but I'm going to create a new scene and call this test. And I'm dragging a PDF from my desktop onto my Ecamm live window. Do you see, is my face covered with a PDF right now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm composing a new scene. I have just dropped a PDF on top of myself, which I can now move around, I can resize, I can play with entirely. And then within this scene, I have control over the PDF. This could be an image. I could draw multiple images. I could also, even on top of this, add new text. Just typing this in. Once I add it, I can then position this somewhere around, right? I can be doing this on the fly, and I've actually done this in a couple of instances when I've wanted to add something to a service that wasn't there. But setting this up as a scene in advance allows me to completely hide all of that and then come back to it in the future, right? I love using the PDF because it's stable and it's reliable, and I know, it's consistent from week to week. These scenes could also just be video. This will be one of the last things I want to show you. I have multiple versions. Here's all of my Shalom Aleichem. Here's all of Mizmor LaDavid. Here's like all of Lachado D. And, I'm just going through scene by scene. I've set all of these up. I've painstakingly moved them to the right place on the screen. I've centered all of the text. I've prepared this. And, I have, I don't know, what is this? 100 scenes that I've set up. And again, I've been building this. We can look at older ones. Here's an older expression of one. I'm switching my cameras around here. Where I just put a very simple graphic on the left, and I've played with things like that. Just want to go. I see the time. I want to open all of your questions. I just want to share, for the sake of this video for posterity, my recommendations. And again, you'll kind of access this PDF. And so when it comes to software, again, I'm a Mac user, and I've played with OBS and I've played with Singular Live. Those are advanced and quite complicated things. There's more complicated and more expensive stuff out there. I love Ecamm Live. I didn't really talk about speaking to the camera, giving a Dvar Torah through a teleprompter. This is actually relatively new territory for me, but the experience to be able to read my notes and also make eye contact. Like right now, I don't have myself up on the screen, but I'm looking right through my teleprompter, mirror, and I really find it's like a palpably different experience when I feel like someone's like looking right to me, right through me. Camo is the name of the software that allows you to use your iPhone as a camera. Duet Display is the software that allows you to use an extra or an old iPad as a second monitor, which is how I use the teleprompter thing. I use Google Sheets and Google Docs a lot. I'm a professional graphic designer, so I love InDesign by Adobe, but I recognize that that's has a steep learning curve and is not cheap. Canva is a really great web-based design tool that I put the things in bold that I really strongly recommend. Also, there are a bunch of things you can do with audio in terms of Ableton Live and Fission, etc. But those are my software recommendations. And then when it comes to hardware, I upgraded to a Mac Mini, which is a desktop. And the specifications are changing all the time, but it's really powerful to be able to see 49 Zoom screens at once, right? I have a monitor that's large enough for that.
How large is your monitor?
This one is a 27 inch. I got it at a consignment shop for $50. I really recommend looking for used gear too, because in this whole consumer market, we're convinced to get newer, fatter, faster, thinner monitors, and they're full of like precious metals that are generally just dumped back into our planet and poisoning them. This was a $50 fabulous monitor. but the processor, the i7 part, again, you check out Zoom, what the tech specs are to be able to see your, you know, I don't know how many people are showing up in your Zoom rooms, but I've never had more than 3 screens when of people come to a service of seeing 49 at a time. It's very powerful. I mentioned earlier the kind of microphone systems to use. I love, there's a microphone called the Rode USB NT. This doesn't require having a special audio interface, a fancy audio interface. And then, yeah, if you want to get fancier with the teleprompter, the foot pedal, the outboard gear, here are some of the other things. I'm using a Canon M50, like a digital mirrorless camera. I also love photography, so it has other uses for me, but it gives a crisper image, this interesting depth of field. It's not only that my books are kind of rainbow ordered back there, but there's like a soft focus of my background, so that separation between subject and background is strong. And then again, I mentioned the Elgato Stream Deck. So that's my 30-minute spiel, but now I would really love to hear, wait, can you say that again? Slow down, other questions. That was a massive download. I'm going to give you the recording. I'm going to give you that slide deck, but where are you guys holding and what do you need? So Leanna, I see if you could use the hands up, the raise your hand, that would be awesome and helpful to me.
So I have a bunch of questions, and I'm going to just sort of shoot them out, and then you can take them as you like.
Great.
You do this thing. You did it where most of the screen is text, and then you are kind of pinned, not as the little square, but there. And you seem to control that, as opposed to my going from gallery view to speaker view. Can you tell me how you do that?
Right, great. So within Zoom, there are 2 viewer modes, which probably a lot of us are familiar with, gallery and speaker view. As us putting stuff out into the world, we actually don't really control which mode people are in. And if they're on devices, different screen aspect ratios, they may not even see what we're sending them. But we do, using a program like Ecamm Live, control what goes out from our little screen. So by setting my virtual camera within Zoom to Ecamm Live, from now on I'm just going to say Ecamm Live. This could be OBS. It could be a virtual camera of any other piece. I'm controlling what goes out. So when I shared this scene with you, this scene is comprised, now I'm still seeing gallery view. I haven't seen, my view hasn't changed, but if you have me big, you'll see me on the right in 1/3 of the screen. And you'll see that I'm sharing a PDF by my side. I guess it would be over there. I have so many mirrors here. Additionally, I don't know if you noticed this is very subtle. Both of those 2 things are floating on a looping video, right? So I've built up that scene within Ecamm, and this is one of my favorite kind of views or ways of using that.
So just technically, so you buy Ecamm Live, and that automatically then gets attached to Zoom, or you have to set it up, and then once you've done that, you create this scene that includes a PDF on one side and then you on another.
Yeah, let me show you this. So you should see a video of me, a black desktop, and something on the left that says scenes. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. So right now this scene is just me, just one camera. Using the menus within Ecamm Live, the very first thing, what we want to do is change the output to virtual cam. The virtual cam being on means that this program is sending its video data out to another program to be used. When I bring Zoom up, under my video options, I get to choose all of these different cameras. Usually you have just one thing here. I have a ton of things set up. You could have your webcam, my phone, OBS virtual camera, all of these things. Likely you just have one camera. You know, it often says, you know, your Mac high definition camera. I've chosen the virtual camera as my video source. So now I'm sending whatever I do in Ecamm. So now back to Ecamm. This is a folder on my desktop, and I just drag this PDF onto my Ecamm window, and boom, it appears there. I have total control about where I set that up. Here, actually, let me recreate that scene that I showed you from before. So I have a folder for all of my Ecamm resources, and I have some videos in here. Let's try with a video you haven't seen. Here, let's try Ocean Ahead.
When you lead services, do you expect that people have a Siddur in hand, or you just assume that everything is going to be on screen and work from there? Because I'm aware, just watching you, like, when you have your Siddur in hand, even if you're aware of keeping yourself, your head and your upper body sort of facing the screen,
Yeah.
you lose intimacy right away. I mean, just because your eyes are looking somewhere else.
Right, that's a great point. We have, at Kol Chai, had been experimenting for 2 or 3 years before the pandemic with projected prayer books.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as I love my Siddurim, my collection of Siddurim, the feeling of like holding and being able to even like hide in a book,
Right.
as soon as we started using that and not needing to announce page numbers and having people looking up and singing out, I felt so liberated by that. I also am opening Kol Chai and welcoming people who may not have a prayer book, even though we provide a PDF at the beginning of the service, and still find like many people are intimidated by the text. And so the last thing I do want people, it is this strange, I'm still like the inner chassid in me is still torn. Like, how Shabbosdik is this really when I have lights and cameras and cables and like I'm like so busy, right? And the metaphor I used when we first pivoted to this, it felt like dancing on a cement floor. Like I was not hearing people's harmonies. I had no feedback. And then actually playing with all of this stuff has it's a completely different orientation, but it's pivoting towards and like totally embracing what this moment might represent.
Right. Instead of retrofitting what we used to do for this, it's saying, no, we're not even going to do that. We're going to be in this mode now.
And I recognize that like renewal is not for everyone. And then it's actually in the amount of disorientation there already is in the world, like what this looks like feels like, even to me, feels like, Ich nashir et shir Hashem al amat nechar. We're like in a foreign land totally. But that's also, I'm just not I'm not really serving a community that's familiar with the prayer book. So that's why I'm doing it this way right now.
Well, maybe some other time I'd be so interested to hear about the experimenting that you're describing. I remember you talking about it when you were down here with us a few years ago, about sort of beginning to play with that. It's something we've talked about in my community and have really shied away from because of how unshabbostic it feels and so on. But you can see how it creates a whole different experience of connectedness, even without Zoom.
Yeah.
Anyway, there are other questions I want to.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love that. Ben.
So, Rabbi Liana and I, we run services together, and very often I'm doing something for, like, moving the next page for her while she's chanting or something. So for this, can this be run in conjunction with somebody else? Can I like pin her video or like have her front and center, and then I'm updating stuff? I'm assuming the answer is yes, because you're able to put other people in there. So like, is it hard to have to switch from me being front with the words, and then on another song her being front with the words and things like that?
Yeah, so this is the best we can do right now. What I just did is called multi-spotlight. I don't know if you see this, Ben. It doesn't always happen that way.
Yeah.
But we're now both front and center for the kahal, so to speak. And I have so my co-leader isn't even in the same space, probably the same with you and Rabbi Liana.
Yeah.
But this is the best we can do. And this really only works when you have like 1 or 2 lines of text. If I start adding more text, I'm half the screen size and Renee is singular live. This is the advantage something like that would provide you, because a third person could change the overlays. It is complicated for me, so I wouldn't recommend it to the faint of heart. I also want to say something very beautiful, and I see you, Liana, trying to jump in here, especially when we're doing lebedik, dancing, sharing music, whatever, people are feeling it. What I'm doing is by adding these spotlights, by having 4 people up, the max that this really works for me is at 9. It actually is like, for a moment, this is the closest we can have to a group hug or a circle dance at this moment, right? And the people who are really feeling it, once they realize like, oh, this isn't a user error, they didn't like hit something and now all of a sudden they're sharing their once you give people kind of notice and they have consent to be dancing in each other's living rooms, we have like really beautiful moments of sharing this prayer space. It's called multi spotlight, which is a relatively new addition to, I think it's Zoom 5 version 5.
Can
Liana.
you take that text and put it on Ben's screen?
No.
Okay, that's a limitation.
So if we did that, we would both have to have the same program, and we'd have to decide for Shalom Aleichem, she's going to put it on hers, and then when I'm singing Micha Mocha, I have to put it on mine. So that's how we would have to run it, correct?
Yep. And another thing you may want to consider is a third account. It could even be a second computer of your own logged into Zoom, where a third screen is your Siddur. So it's not an overlay, but maybe you decide that maybe you have a layout like this. You have 4 squares. One of them is the image of your sanctuary, or a beautiful, inspiring scene, or sunset out of someone's window. One is the Siddur, and then the 2 is you. I would play with something like that. Singular live, again, is like you can have that transparent lower third over. So I want to jump to Brielle before the top of the hour, and then well, Rabbi Eva, you're up, and then I'll see you. I got you, Brielle. Eva.
Cody. So my thought is like in creating these pieces, like I'm working now, creating a PowerPoint for Tu B'Shvat, right?
Yeah.
And it's just so labor intensive because I'm not typing everything out, trying to do cut and paste. It doesn't always fit. Are there certain tricks that you have in terms of taking text or sources that are really clear that you don't have to do much manipulation?
Yeah. So in terms of finding text, Sefaria.org is a wonderful place. Open Siddur is another great place. And I've just been building up a library over years. I mean, having done the Romamu Siddur and having that proofread by a professional, and having all of that documentation, I have like my own collection. Davka, if you go back to like the word processor of your, used to have all of this stuff built in, and you may have access to things through Spiritus or other databases. So those are where the sources come from. Building up your own transliteration library is a whole other kettle of fish, and also I find transliteration is different based on different communities, different purposes, like scholarly transliteration versus transliteration for But let me also show you something that is called paste with formatting. Right? So I have my scene Ze here. I'm going to duplicate it and just, this is called a copy of Ze Hayom, right? So just by double clicking, I go in here to edit. And let me get Safaria open here, or here. No, I have this spreadsheet open, so I don't even need to. I'm going to take some text from here. I'm going to take this L'Shem Yichud because it just stands out to me. I'm going to copy it. And again, I have this whole treasure house of things that I may want to use that I've been organizing for over the years. Now, if I just hit paste, here, if I hit paste and hit save, it's going to mess everything up. It came in black, it came in at a different size, it came in at a different font. I'm going to undo that. But, and I do almost everything, all of these by shortcut, keyboard shortcut. But if I go to edit, paste and match style means that I'm going to paste whatever is in the clipboard, but it's going to look like whatever I just pasted it to. So now it's the same font, it's the same size, it's the same color. I'm going to have to delete all of these lines because you don't want to have too many lines. I'll delete Ze Hayom, L'Shem Yichud Kutchabrichu Shchinte, hit save, and now I've just brought in new text, but it still matches the design style. Did I get your question, Rabbi Eva?
I think so. Now I just have to figure out where to start.
I know that was super speedy, but
Thank you, Shir.
yeah. Let me turn off. Brielle, go for it.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to acknowledge how, like, not surprised, but like utterly mind blown I am at the amount of work that you've put into this. And just how many moving pieces, and when people were throwing into the chat at Ohala, like, how are you doing that? Like, I knew it wasn't going to be as simple as like a click this, but just how complex it is and how simple you make it seem is unbelievable and extraordinary. So I almost wish that like everybody could see it just so that they could appreciate like what we get to see, the finished product, because it's like, so I'm like amazed. And also wondering, the Ecamm live and the overlays and all of that, can you use that same thing on like a Facebook live broadcast or like any other type of thing?
Yeah. If anything that is asking you for your computer's video signal, so a Google Meet, live streaming to Facebook. There's also something within Ecamm that, I can't show you while because I'm recording locally, but you see here, I'm recording this to my hard drive. I could also be, it's called multicasting. I could be sending this video not only to Zoom, but also to Facebook Live, also to YouTube, also to, multiple channels. Those are usually subscription-based services. We experimented with that too. We experimented with the one-to-many format of like, you can see me, but we can't see you. That felt completely like tightrope wire in outer space. I already don't know where this is landing. I don't hear people breathe. I don't see all of the details. People have their cameras off. I don't know if they're like falling, it's still like kind of dancing in the dark, but to not be able to see people was just not a question. So we just do it within Zoom.
Cool.
Liana,
all right, thank you. I have to run, but this was amazing and so informative and wonderful.
Run with love. Liana, did you have another question?
Can I jump in?
Oh yeah, sure.
I can't figure out how to raise my hand.
You just did. Raise your hand? Analog hands unite.
But how do you do I used to know how. I can't find it for some reason.
I think under the chat there's a more button on the lower right hand side where it says more. You can raise hand.
Yeah, somehow it's not here. Anyways, Lenora, I think this is a bigger question than for right now, but I'm curious about, you mentioned about consent in terms of, popping people up into the spotlight. Like, I'm curious how you do that. And I'm also curious about decision about when do you record?
Yeah. We pretty much have asked, I don't remember where we have asked for this. There is a setting within Zoom about your waiting room message, the message that people see when they're put into the waiting room. I think we've put it in there that, we will be recording and possibly sharing excerpts of this service on YouTube, asking people to opt out. I know Zoom also, on certain meetings, notifies people if it's being recorded. And by entering the room, you have to consent to having either your name or your likeness. Now, there are certain instances, certain programs we offer where that it doesn't feel right, doesn't feel comfortable. It's a whole new way. It's a whole new paradigm, right? But we do try to make that explicit. And then if I do, sometimes we've tried to like edit some videos that are kind of like answering the question, what happens at a Kol Chai Kabbalat Shabbat on Zoom? Like take a sweet moment and edit it together. I also then asked for explicit consent from people to be able to share their likeness on YouTube.
Thank you.
Yeah. I see your questions in, Liana. Do you want to ask them? Why don't you ask them verbally?
So I just want to reiterate a couple others. You mentioned sort of free video, like where you could get that. Also, whether any suggestions for creating eye contact when you wear glasses and the camera is not exactly at eye level.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Singular Live, and I just wanted to clarify whether that was another program or a setting on Webcam Live, Ecamm Live.
So the video library I use is called Pexels. It's like Pixel, but with two E's, P-E-X-E-L-S, Pexels. There are other ones. I just like that one. Singular.live is the name of that service. So it's not .com. If you go to singular.live, and if you tell them you're a nonprofit, I think they're still giving that software away for free. Again, super. I spent 4 or 5 hours trying to figure it out, and finally felt like I can do, and trying to get that one piece of having someone else being able to do the scene switching for me. I decided to stay with Ecamm Live because it was close enough. So without buying an external, like a teleprompter, which I'm speaking to with two-way glass, or with glasses, I mean, I often take my glasses off because I haven't really mastered how to do the glare. But it has to do also with the angle of your light. Right now, I haven't set this up perfectly for this, but there's no glare on my glasses right now. If I'm there, you have that annoying rectangular light. But again, I'll show you the hold on, I gotta turn this off. So sometimes also the computer doesn't know which shortcut I'm trying to, I can't show you, but I'm using something called a key light, which has a diffuse light. I tried using like lamps I had at home, desk lamps, angled them, reflected light. There's a whole industry around lighting for a reason. This is something called the Elgato key light, and I think it's, the brand is Elgato, E-L-G-A-T-O, and it has this really nice diffuse light. I actually can control it, again, using my Stream Deck. I can control how bright it is, the color temperature too. Between cool and light, it's an LED light. Play with all of that, get all sorts of different moods there. And it has to do with the angles. I mean, all of this has to do with angles. So even if you're not going to buy extra lights, what I do recommend is try to minimize your video, your self video as small as you can, and put it up as close as you can to your built-in camera. There's a natural tendency, a human, egoic, mammalian, maybe even reptilian tendency to keep on looking at your own image. Try to get that image as close to your camera as possible, and it simulates, it's as close as you can get to that eye contact. And still here, I'm also trying to figure out exactly where to put my own image within the teleprompter so that I'm really like diving right into the center of that lens.
Yeah, and I guess your trick, like when I'm leading a service, I'm being hyper aware of like what's going on the screen, but also I need to be able to see the text. My eyes aren't so great. So I'm wondering, for you as a service leader, I know a lot of the prayers, but I need to have a visual. How do you set it up so that you can actually see what you're leading?
Yeah, trial and error. It has absolutely failed. And sometimes you have to choose one over the other. I mean, there have been times that I've been like giving my Devar Torah over to my Google Doc, and I have no idea if people are still there, or, I like don't see anyone. And it's just like, oh, messed that one up, or that ship has sailed. I also, like I said, I'm recording this in two places, having backups. Have your Siddur nearby. Have print materials. And I'm still amazed that in 10 months, Zoom has not gone down yet during a service. I've accidentally disconnected myself once, and I thought I closed the whole meeting for everyone while someone else was speaking. That luckily didn't happen, and most people didn't notice I was gone. And also expect to fail. I mean, this is a totally awkward new space. It's not anything we expected or wanted, but we also, there is no place devoid of Shekhinah, right? If we allow there to be this kind of embrace and this opportunity, this connection, and just make Hakarat HaTov and make the best of what we've got. I think I'll leave it there, but I'm going to leave it there for the sake of this recording. If you have any other questions, please shir@kolchai.org or kolchai, KOLHAI.org. You can find me and us and connect there.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Blessings. Be well.